The arrival of the assassins. It was an ordinary day on the edge of the Vorus system, a quiet planet where human civilization had flourished for centuries. The sun glimmered off the glass towers of the capital city, casting long shadows on the bustling streets below. Vora was a world of innovation and harmony, where humans had learned to work alongside alien species, forging peaceful alliances and trading resources. But beneath the surface of this peaceful world, a storm was brewing. For years, the human race had quietly built its influence, not just within its own solar system, but across vast stretches of the galaxy. What had begun as an unlikely species, barely surviving on a hostile planet, had grown into one of the most formidable forces in the galaxy. The humans had achieved extraordinary things, inventing technologies that had advanced them far beyond their initial capabilities. Yet, as they expanded, so too did the dangers they faced. The Zorlun, a species of alien assassins feared across the galaxy, had set their sights on Earth. No one had seen them coming. They didn't broadcast their arrival. They didn't send emissaries. They simply appeared, emerging from the vast, empty stretches of space with lethal intent. Their reputation was enough to make entire civilizations tremble. Known for their ability to hunt down and eliminate their targets without leaving a trace, the Zorlun had taken down species far more advanced than humanity. The galaxy's most powerful warriors feared them. They were known to infiltrate the highest echelons of society, patiently waiting for the perfect moment to strike. A kill could be made with a single shot, or sometimes with no weapon at all, just the deadly silent embrace of their stealth and precision. They were relentless, and they were coming for humanity. Back on Earth, a young officer named Isaac Volar had no idea of the threat that loomed. Isaac had just been assigned to a new post in Vora's planetary defense unit, a job he took with pride. It wasn't glamorous, but it was important. The planet's safety rested on the shoulders of men like him. Every day, Isaac stood guard, keeping an eye on the skies for anything that could threaten their peaceful existence. He was trained for this. He had dealt with pirate raids and minor threats before. But what he hadn't expected was this: an enemy so silent, so precise, and so terrifying that no one would see it coming until it was too late. His day started like any other. Isaac arrived at the command center, a massive structure made of steel and reinforced glass. The panoramic view of the city stretched before him, a sprawling metropolis with a vast network of transportation and trade routes. His eyes caught the usual flurry of activity: ships coming in and out of the atmosphere, soldiers going about their daily drills. It all felt routine. There was a certain comfort in that. But deep down, Isaac felt a nagging sensation that something was off. It was the same feeling he had before a storm, when the air felt still, too quiet. He couldn't shake it. As he sat at his station, looking over the latest reports from Vora's orbital satellites, something caught his eye. A small ship, an anomaly, was detected on the far side of the system. It was moving fast, too fast for a civilian vessel, but too small to be military grade. The ship's course was erratic, making it nearly impossible to track. The readings suggested it wasn't part of any known fleet. Isaac immediately brought the coordinates to his superior, Captain Elena Lorne. Captain Lorne was known for her strictness and her sharp eye for detail. If anyone could make sense of the situation, it was her. She walked over to Isaac's station, her brow furrowed in concentration as she examined the data on his screen. "This doesn't look like anything we've seen before," she muttered, her voice low. "Get a team ready. We'll investigate immediately." Isaac nodded and swiftly gathered a team of elite soldiers, all of them trained in space combat. They boarded the nearest shuttle and made their way to the coordinates, unsure of what they were heading into. As they neared the target zone, Isaac's unease grew. Something about the ship they were tracking felt wrong, out of place. It wasn't just the fact that it was moving so erratically. It was the fact that it was waiting. It wasn't trying to escape. It wasn't trying to hide. It was waiting for something, and that something, Isaac feared, might be them. As they closed the distance, Captain Lorne ordered the shuttle to hold position and prepare for a scan. The crew deployed a series of advanced probes to monitor the surroundings. For several moments, everything seemed eerily calm. But then, in a split second, everything changed. The ship that had been unremarkable seconds ago suddenly shifted. In a burst of speed, it launched forward, leaving a trail of bright blue energy in its wake. The shuttle's proximity sensors blared in alarm, and Captain Lorne's voice cut through the noise. "Brace for impact," she shouted. In a flurry of movement, the shuttle's systems went into emergency mode, and the crew was thrown into chaos. The enemy ship was far faster than they had anticipated, and before they could react, it was upon them. Isaac barely had time to register the sleek, dark shape of the Zorlun ship before it was gone, vanishing into the depths of space. "Get us out of here now," Captain Lorne ordered, but it was too late. The Zorlun had already infiltrated their defenses. Isaac's heart raced as he watched the crew scramble to regain control. The Zorlun were on board. The assassins had arrived, and now, for the first time in human history, they would test the true strength of humanity's defenses. Isaac couldn't help but wonder, how could humans, with all their strengths and technologies, possibly survive against an enemy like this? As the shuttle drifted deeper into enemy territory, Captain Lorne turned to Isaac. Her face was grim. "Stay sharp, Volar. This is only the beginning. We've seen what they can do from the shadows. But what they don't realize is that we are stronger than they think. We fight for each other. And that's something they'll never understand." Isaac nodded, determination in his eyes. He had always believed in humanity's ability to overcome adversity. But now, standing on the precipice of the most dangerous battle humanity had ever faced, Isaac knew that their strength, humanity's strength, would be tested like never before. The Zorlun may have come for them, but Isaac and his crew were ready to show the galaxy that humans were not just survivors. They were warriors. And the assassins had made a grave mistake underestimating them. The fight for Vora had just begun. The shadow of the Zorlun. The silence of space is unnerving, especially when it is followed by the echo of impending destruction. Isaac Volar and his team stood frozen in their shuttle as the Zorlun ship, sleek and ghostly in its movements, vanished from their radar. The sense of helplessness was overwhelming. Being so close to danger and yet unable to respond. The crew worked frantically, but despite their best efforts, the enemy was already upon them. Captain Elena Lorne's voice cut through the tension. "Activate defensive shields and prepare for a counterattack. These aliens may be faster than us, but they've underestimated one thing: our determination." She paced in the small shuttle, her eyes scanning the control panel for signs of the enemy's next move. She was calm, but there was an edge to her voice that Isaac hadn't heard before. It was the sound of someone who knew what was at stake. Isaac felt his pulse quicken. He was no stranger to combat, but this was different. These Zorlun assassins had a reputation far beyond the reaches of human understanding. How did you fight an enemy that could strike without warning, without even leaving a trace? How did you defend against an enemy who was more shadow than substance? The crew quickly moved into action, following their captain's orders with precision. But Isaac couldn't shake the feeling that they were not in control of the situation. The enemy had the upper hand, and it was clear that this was just the beginning of a far larger conflict. Minutes passed, but it felt like hours. Every hum and whir of the shuttle's systems seemed amplified, as though the ship itself was holding its breath. Isaac's eyes flicked from one corner of the cockpit to the other, watching for any sign of movement. And then, as though the universe itself had decided it was time to speak, the sensors gave a violent flicker. "Movement detected," Isaac said sharply, eyes widening as the radar screen flickered to life. "It's coming from above us. Fast." "Hold steady," Captain Lorne ordered, her voice unwavering. "Prepare for engagement." The Zorlun ship had returned, this time in full force. As it came into view, Isaac could finally make out its true form, A long, slender vessel, its surface almost mirror-like in its reflection of the surrounding stars. Its design was elegant, deadly, and completely foreign. The Zorlun did not just attack, they consumed everything in their path, like an unstoppable force of nature. As the ship drew closer, the shuttle's defensive systems activated. The blaring alarm told them what they had feared. The shields were working, but just barely. The Zorlun's firepower was more advanced than anything they had encountered. The first blast hit the shuttle's port side, sending the vessel rocking violently. Isaac was thrown against the side, but he scrambled back to his feet, eyes fixed on the chaos unfolding in front of him. "We're too slow. We need to escape," Isaac shouted, feeling a surge of panic rise in his chest. "Not yet," Captain Lorne said grimly. "The Zorlun are waiting for us to panic. If we give them that advantage, it's over." Isaac steadied himself, drawing a deep breath. Captain Lorne was right. Panic would be the thing that sealed their fate. They had to remain calm, fight with everything they had, or humanity's first encounter with the Zorlun would be its last. "Activate countermeasures," Captain Lorne barked. Isaac slammed his hand on the control panel, initiating evasive maneuvers. The shuttle shot into a sharp dive, plummeting toward Vora's atmosphere. The Zorlun ship followed, relentless in its pursuit. A barrage of laser fire streaked past them, missing by mere inches, but still shaking the shuttle with the force of each near miss. Isaac's hands were steady now, his training kicking in as he guided the shuttle into the planet's lower atmosphere. He could feel the heat building as the ship sped toward the clouds, but there was no time to waste. The Zorlun would follow them down. He knew that much. The only chance they had was to make it to Vora's surface and disappear into the maze of cities below. "Captain," Isaac shouted as the ground grew closer, "we won't outrun them. They'll track us the whole way down." "We don't need to outrun them. We need to outthink them," Captain Lorne said, a fierce glint in her eye. "What are you suggesting?" Isaac asked, a tightness in his chest. "We're going to take the fight to them," she said, her voice calm but resolute. "We're going to give them a taste of what happens when you underestimate humanity." With no time to waste, the captain turned to the crew, giving quick, precise orders. The shuttle dropped into the lower city levels, weaving through the maze of towering structures as they tried to lose their pursuers. Isaac's heart raced as they barely skimmed the tops of skyscrapers, the Zorlun ship following relentlessly behind them. In that moment, Isaac understood the true meaning of war. It wasn't just about firepower. It wasn't just about the strength of your weapons or the size of your ship. War was about willpower, ingenuity, and the ability to adapt to an ever-changing battlefield. And humanity, for all its flaws and shortcomings, had one thing that the Zorlun would soon learn to fear: the ability to think in ways no alien assassin could predict. As the shuttle weaved between buildings and the city below began to grow chaotic, Isaac felt a surge of adrenaline. He didn't know if they were going to make it out alive, but he knew one thing for sure: they were not going down without a fight. The Zorlun had come to take down humanity, but what they hadn't counted on was humanity's unwavering resolve to protect its future, no matter the cost. "I'll give them a fight they'll never forget," Isaac muttered under his breath, gripping the controls with renewed determination. The city of Vora had no idea that it was about to become the battleground for humanity's survival. The Zorlun assassins might have come in the shadows, but Isaac and his crew would fight them in the light. The fate of their planet, and perhaps the galaxy, depended on their ability to adapt, to outthink their enemies, and to prove that no assassin, no matter how deadly, could ever defeat the strength of humanity. With the Zorlun closing in, the true war was only just beginning. The human edge. The chase through the lower city of Vora had reached a fever pitch. The once peaceful streets, lined with shimmering towers and bustling marketplaces, now echoed with the harsh sound of engines and the thunderous roar of escape. Isaac and his team had taken refuge in the heart of the city, navigating through narrow alleyways and weaving between towering skyscrapers. Every turn brought them closer to what felt like certain death, yet there was still a flicker of hope in Isaac's chest. As the shuttle tore through the streets, Isaac's mind raced, calculating the next move. The Zorlun ship continued its pursuit, undeterred by the city's tight quarters. The alien ship's advanced technology made it faster, more maneuverable, and far more capable of tracking their every move. They were a step behind in nearly every way, but Isaac wasn't ready to accept defeat. He'd fought too long for humanity to fall at the hands of an enemy they barely understood. "They're gaining on us, Captain," Isaac said, his voice trained from the tension. The Zorlun ship had closed the gap significantly in the past few minutes. If they didn't find a way to lose them soon, their fate would be sealed. "We need to think of something fast. We won't make it to the edge of the city at this rate." Captain Lorne's gaze never wavered from the controls. "We're not running, Volar. We're outsmarting them. Keep your head in the game." Isaac's hands gripped the shuttle's controls, his eyes darting back and forth as he searched for any potential advantage. The city's maze of towers and spires was their best hope. They had to lose the Zorlun in the labyrinth of skyscrapers, give them a moment to regroup and plan their next move. But to do that, they needed to think differently. "Hold on," Captain Lorne said, her voice taking on an air of finality. "We're going to take a risk. Do exactly as I say." Isaac nodded, trusting his captain's instincts. He had no idea what she had in mind, but in this kind of situation, trust was the only thing that could get them through. Suddenly, Captain Lorne steered the shuttle upward, diving between two massive towers that loomed on either side. The shuttle's hull scraped against the edges of the buildings, sending a shower of sparks flying as it squeezed through the narrow gap. Isaac barely managed to keep the shuttle on course, his knuckles white against the controls. The Zorlun ship followed with frightening precision, not allowing the slightest opportunity to escape. Then, just as it seemed the Zorlun ship would overtake them, Captain Lorne performed a daring move. She slammed the shuttle into a steep dive, dropping into the city's underground transit tunnels. The Zorlun ship hesitated for a fraction of a second, thrown off by the sudden change in direction, but the moment was all Isaac needed. They hurtled through the tunnels, the shuttle's engines roaring, echoing off the cold steel walls. The Zorlun ship followed, but the narrow confines of the tunnels made it harder to maneuver. They were far from safe, but for the first time in what felt like hours, Isaac felt a spark of hope. "Stay focused," Captain Lorne said, her voice steady despite the chaos surrounding them. "We need to hit the power junction up ahead. It's our only shot." Isaac glanced at the map on his control panel. The power junction was a critical node in the city's infrastructure, one that supplied power to several sectors of the underground network. If they could reach it and disrupt the flow, they might be able to knock out the Zorlun's tracking systems. But it was a long shot, a risky move. If they failed, they would be exposed, and there would be no escape. The tunnel system was a maze, but Isaac had memorized its layout. He pushed the shuttle to its limits, darting through tight corners and taking dangerous shortcuts in the hopes of reaching the junction before the Zorlun could catch up. "We're almost there," Isaac said through gritted teeth. "Keep your eyes on the power grid. I'm going to need you to activate the disruption protocols when we reach it." Captain Lorne nodded. "Ready." They rounded a corner and saw the junction ahead, its massive energy conduits glowing with electric blue light. The Zorlun ship was right behind them, now just seconds away from firing. Isaac's heart pounded in his chest. It was do or die. Isaac's voice was a command, quiet but resolute. "Now." Captain Lorne slammed the override button, and the shuttle systems shifted into emergency mode. A pulse of energy rippled through the ship as the power grid began to short-circuit, sending surges of electricity into the tunnels. The lights flickered, and the power went down in a series of bursts. The shuttle shuddered violently, and Isaac braced himself as a high-pitched alarm went off. The Zorlun ship, still in pursuit, failed to anticipate the sudden shift. In that moment, everything seemed to slow down. The alien ship's weapons fired, but without the full targeting system. The shots went wide, hitting the walls of the tunnel instead of their mark. The shuttle rocked but stayed on course. The Zor-Lun ship, now crippled by the disruption, lost its ability to track them with pinpoint precision. "Nice work, Captain," Isaac said, his voice filled with relief. The shuttle was still rattling, but they had a chance. They were escaping. Captain Lorne didn't smile. "We're not out of danger yet, Volar. Keep going." The shuttle veered sharply left, avoiding a direct collision with the tunnel's wall by mere inches. Isaac's grip on the controls tightened. They were not just escaping. They were proving something. Something vital. Humanity was not going to roll over and die just because a more advanced enemy had come to claim their world. They were fighting back, and this time, they had the advantage of unpredictability on their side. The Zor-Lun, masters of stealth and strategy, had made a critical mistake. They thought that humanity would follow the same patterns they had encountered from other species, a simple, predictable prey. But they had underestimated the most dangerous trait of all, human ingenuity. Isaac's mind raced as they flew deeper into the tunnels, but his thoughts kept circling back to the Zor-Lun. They weren't just assassins. They were symbols of something far more dangerous, an enemy that would not stop until humanity was extinguished. And yet, in their underestimation of human strength, Isaac realized they had made their first and most fatal mistake. "We've disrupted their systems, but they won't stop pursuing," Captain Lorne said, her voice tight with focus. "We need to lead them into a trap." Isaac's gaze hardened. "Then let's give them a fight they'll never forget." With the Zor-Lun temporarily disabled, Isaac and his crew now had a window of opportunity to turn the tables. They had lost their first battle, but they had won a small victory, and that victory would fuel the fires of their resistance. The Zor-Lun had come to eradicate humanity, but they had forgotten one crucial truth. Humanity wasn't just a species. It was a force, an idea, and an unwavering will to survive. Isaac and his team would show the galaxy that human determination could never be underestimated. As the shuttle rocketed deeper into the heart of Vora, Captain Lorne's voice broke through the tension. "Get ready, Isaac. This is where we make our stand." The true battle was about to begin. The trap is set. The heart of Vora City pulsed beneath Isaac's feet as the shuttle sped through the underground tunnel systems. The adrenaline from their narrow escape had not faded, and Isaac's mind raced with possibilities. The Zor-Lun assassins were relentless, their tactics nearly flawless, and yet, for the first time, Isaac felt they were one step ahead. The trick, he realized, was not in outgunning them, but in outsmarting them. "We've got to turn this around," Isaac muttered, his voice taut with resolve. "We've got one shot at this, Captain. Let's make it count." Captain Lorne nodded, her eyes narrowing with a mixture of determination and clarity. "Volar, you're right. But we need to do this carefully. If we try to go for a head-on confrontation now, we'll lose. We need to make them believe we're running, make them think they're in control." Isaac's fingers hovered over the controls. The shuttle was battered, its systems running on emergency backup. The Zor-Lun had given chase, but their abilities to track were severely compromised by the power surge. Now they had to lead the Zor-Lun ship into the perfect position to trap them. And for that, they needed the city's network of tunnels, sublevels, and strategic locations only the humans knew how to exploit. "I've been thinking about that power junction we hit earlier," Isaac said, his voice low. "We disrupt their systems again, but this time, we leave a trail. Let them follow us. We lead them straight into the heart of the city. The older districts, the forgotten tunnels under Vora. There's an old industrial complex down there." "Old industrial complex," Captain Lorne repeated, her brow furrowed as she processed the plan. "You think we can trap them there?" "I'm sure of it," Isaac replied. "The tunnels are networked with explosive charges, long decommissioned by the city's engineers. If we can activate them remotely, we can bring the entire complex down on top of them." Captain Lorne looked thoughtful for a moment, weighing the risks. The Zorlun were experts at reading their targets, and any mistake could cost them the advantage. But Isaac's plan had merit. The alien assassins had tracked them with ease so far that the city's intricate systems, the very ones they relied on for survival, could now become their greatest weapon. I like it. Let's move. And Volar, don't miss. Isaac gave a quick, determined nod. I won't. As the shuttle hurtled through the tunnels, the low hum of the engines was the only sound that accompanied them. Isaac's mind raced, mentally preparing for the next steps. The complex was only a few kilometers away, but the Zorlun weren't going to sit back and let them make a clean getaway. The chase was far from over. Isaac had to keep the shuttle moving at breakneck speed. Narrow turns, quick dips, sudden climbs, all while maintaining just enough distance to stay ahead. Meanwhile, Captain Lorne was coordinating with their ground teams, sending messages to Vora's command center to activate security systems in the old district. They needed every available defense in place. The city's ancient emergency grids, dormant for decades, were the last line of defense. If they could force the Zorlun into one of the city's oldest zones, the alien ship wouldn't stand a chance. Isaac's thoughts were interrupted by the flash of a red alert across his console. They're on our tail again, Isaac said, urgency creeping into his voice. The Zorlun ship had regained their tracking signal and was closing in on them faster than anticipated. They didn't have much time. Don't let them get too close, Captain Lorne ordered, her voice firm. We're almost there. Just keep them at bay. Isaac pushed the shuttle's engines to their limits, taking sharp corners with reckless abandon. The city's towering structures passed by in a blur as the shuttle zipped toward the industrial complex. He could almost hear the Zorlun ship behind them, a predator closing in on its prey. They could see the shimmering lights of the old district ahead, a maze of derelict factories and abandoned buildings, their original purpose long forgotten. Now they were part of the city's underbelly, an ideal location for their final stand. Activate the emergency grid, now, Isaac commanded, pressing the button that would open the ancient power lines to the district. We need to get them into position. Captain Lorne's hands flew over the control panel, sending the command to Vora's central systems. The flicker of lights on the map indicated the activation of the grid. The emergency alarms blared to life throughout the complex, setting the stage for the trap. They had just a few moments before the Zorlun ship reached their position. Isaac's heart thudded in his chest as they approached the complex, the first of the factory buildings coming into view. He was already calculating the path. They would need to lead the Zorlun ship through the deepest section of the district, where the tunnels and old tunnels converge. The old underground roads were lined with explosives designed to clear debris in case of structural collapse. If they could ignite them just as the Zorlun ship passed overhead, they'd be trapped. But the timing had to be perfect. If the Zorlun anticipated this move, they would be in deep trouble. The shuttle slipped through the tight alleyways, skimming the crumbling edges of the factory buildings. The air grew thicker with tension as Isaac glanced over his shoulder, seeing the glow of the Zorlun ship drawing closer. The shuttle's sensors were showing them only seconds ahead of their pursuers. Then, just as they entered the old industrial complex's heart, Isaac heard a sudden boom, the unmistakable sound of a large explosion as the emergency charges were triggered. The tunnel walls trembled and dust filled the air. The Zorlun ship wasn't far behind. Isaac had done his part, but it wasn't enough. They needed the last element of the trap, the precise timing to seal the district and cut off any escape. The shuttle's engine screamed as Isaac sent the ship into a steep dive. Now, Captain. Do it now, Isaac yelled. The Zorlun were almost there, too close. Captain Lorne pressed the final button. The blast doors at the end of the industrial complex began to close with a screech of grinding metal. But the Zorlun ship wasn't slowing down. It would crash straight into the trap unless Isaac could do something else, something they hadn't anticipated. With his pulse racing, Isaac locked eyes with the monitor. He slammed a series of emergency overrides, activating a final set of bombs placed along the lower tunnels. It was the last line of defense. The Zorlun ship entered the kill zone, just as the gates slammed shut, trapping it inside the complex. Isaac could see the shimmer of the alien vessel, moments away from hitting the blast doors. He exhaled slowly, knowing the Zorlun would try to break through. "Now we finish this," Captain Lorne said, a cold, determined glint in her eye. Isaac pressed the detonator, and the ground shook beneath them. A series of explosions detonated in the final moments, collapsing the walls and igniting fires throughout the complex. The Zorlun ship was caught in the flames and debris, its shield flickering out. The shuttle rattled violently, but Isaac held on tight. For a moment, there was silence. The shuttle floated in the air, suspended in the aftershock of their trap. Isaac's heart still raced, but the immediate threat had passed. The Zorlun ship, once an unstoppable force, was now grounded in the ruins of the industrial complex. Isaac glanced over at Captain Lorne. The adrenaline was fading, but there was no time to celebrate. "We've won this round," Captain Lorne said quietly. "But the war is far from over." Isaac nodded grimly. The Zorlun had made a deadly mistake underestimating humanity's resourcefulness. But there were still more of them out there. The true test had only just begun. As the city of Vora quieted once again, Isaac knew this battle would be remembered not just as a victory, but as the moment humanity proved they could fight back, no matter the odds. The trap had been set, but it was only the beginning of what was to come.